Anyway, 2 or 3 weeks ago, I spoke about the deepest humanitarian crisis of European civilization. If you remember, before the 14th century crisis, the Black Death, the Great Plague, which devastated more than 1/3 of European population, organized the first form of European economy with two poles: a northern pole around Low Country, recently named to the Netherlands, Belgium and Luxembourg, and the southern pole, industrial pole, basically, and the southern pole are North Italian cities. The first generation, Amalfi, south from Naples, and later Venice, Genoa and Pisa. Basically focused to the trade of spice, basically. And between these poles organized a meeting place, a fairs of Champagne Brie. And the fairs of Champagne Brie destroyed finally by crisis of 14th century. And the last slide about the crisis of 14th century, I spoke about the special nature of 14th century crisis. Basically, the 14th century crisis we can describe as creative destruction. Creative destruction means the traditional feudal system wasn't able to solve the problem, solve the crisis, solve the problem of shortage. Therefore, the crisis it's cancelled almost whole of the feudal infrastructure and feudal social structure and opened the way for modernization. And the first city-state who applied the chance for modernization was Venice. Who visited in Venice?
Me.
Nobody? You visited?
Yeah.
How long?
About 2 years ago.
But how long you stay in Venice?
Only 2 days.
2 days.
Yes.
Yeah, I suggest to everybody because it's a very special place. No similar whole of Europe, whole of the continental Europe. Because on the time of foundation, Venice connected to the Byzantine Empire with the capital of Constantinople. Therefore, the taste of Oriental Empire, Hellenistic Empire, very close and very a crucial element of formation of society and the buildings and the formation of social space. Okay, look at Venice. How became able to organize the first unical power and first centralized world economy in Europe? Because the first version of world economy is two poles and form an axis via Champagne Brie. If we are looking the basic reason of rising up to the hierarchy of European trading society, it's described quite well the consequence of the 14th century crisis. This diagram shows how decreased the income of territorial state. Look at, for example, England. In the case of England, 65% of budget, of state budget, expired. Why? Because very high proportion of citizens who pay the tax to the budget of state died. Therefore, in consequence of great humanitarian loss, decreased the budget. More critical situation, Spain. On the Spain, 73% disappear. On the time, it's not a real Spain because we are before the unification, but the majority of Iberian Peninsula reconquested yet to the 14th century. And it's basically focused to the Castile, which is the core area of the Spanish kingdom. Okay, look at Venice. The loss of Venice in consequence of 14th century crisis, only 27%. Why? Because the most important products which commercialized by Venetian trader are luxury products. Pepper, nutmeg, cinnamon, basically a luxury spices. Therefore, upper part of the society much higher rate survive the humanitarian crisis. Therefore, the paying capacity much higher, much better, much more efficiently survive the stroke of humanitarian crisis. Therefore, the position compared with the territorial state like England, like France, like Spain, improved the relative position. Look at a little bit much closer the supremacy of Venice. If we are looking at history of Venice, no reliable documentary sources. A lot of myths and legends are the early history of Venice, but no reliable documentary sources. Look at the first, which is on the shield of Venice. One sentence we can read: non arat, non seminat, non vendemiat. This is a Latin sentence, somebody know which is the meaning? No sowing, no plowing, and no harvesting. We are not a peasant. It's a declaration, very proud declaration of urban people. We are not a peasant, we are not a primary producer. We are an urban citizen. Non arat, non seminat, non vendemiat. Okay. As I mentioned, only one student visited in Venice, no any other. Okay, very important, we are speaking about a city, and I show a short video, a short movie about the built area and the spirit and the atmosphere of the city. It's help a little bit understand function and formation of Venice. Look at the short movie.
Rising from the waters of Venice lagoon.
Oh, sorry.
is a place like no other.
I changed to English. The subtitle.
The Italian city of Venice. Once the world's greatest port, here, protected from the swells of the Adriatic, Venetian merchants created an impossible city of incredible wealth. Long hailed as the most breathtaking city on earth, there is no denying that sometimes Venice can be overwhelmed with admirers. But if you take your time and treat her gently, she will reward you with moments of profound beauty and bliss. Most visits begin in the central district of San Marco, where you find one of the world's great squares, St. Mark's. Arrive with the dawn, and the piazza will be yours to enjoy, without the crowds. St. Mark's Square is surrounded by some of the city's finest architectural jewels, but there are none greater than St. Mark's Basilica, a treasure house of holy relics from the body of St. Mark to a lock of the Virgin Mary's hair. St. Mark was known as Mark the Lion-Hearted, and everywhere you turn in Venice you see this proud symbol. Across from the Basilica stands the city's beloved bell tower, St. Mark's Campanile. Climb the tower to see Venice stretch out in all her marble and red-tiled splendor. Below the tower is one of the city's great landmarks, Doge's Palace. For centuries, this Venetian Gothic masterpiece was the seat of the Republic's power and prestige. Today, its courtyards, apartments and chambers are a museum, which celebrates centuries of Venetian achievement and glory. Just outside stand the columns of San Marco and San Teodoro, the traditional gateway to the city. Here, under the winged lion of Venice, begin your journey along one of the world's great aquatic thoroughfares, the Grand Canal. For almost 2.5 miles, the canal winds through Venice. It is her main artery, her lifeblood. Ride the Vaporetto
Okay.
di Marte and explore the canal's
It's a modern touristical
riding through
information.
Venice.
Good. Anyway, a short video shows somehow why so special atmosphere of Venice. If we are looking the history of Venice, no reliable documentary sources, but some information we know. For example, according to legend, founded Venice refugees in the late antiquity who escaped from one Roman city, Aquileia, very close to the coastal area of Adriatic Sea, escaped for the troops, for the folks of age of migration to the small islands of Adriatic Sea. Part of Byzantine empires. Why so important? Because on the time of foundation, Byzantine Empire was the big brother who was able to save a weak community who lived in the island of later settlement, which formed later Venice, a Republic of Venice. Partly the elite of Venice, the Venetian elite, basically follow the Eastern Christendom, not the Latin version, Eastern Christendom until the modern time. And the most important income of Venetian trader was the spice trade. Okay, which were the strengths of Venice? Look at, for example, according to analysis. The first one, as I mentioned before, protection of Byzantine Empire, a great power of Byzantine Empire. The second one, defensive geographical position. Why so important? Because if we are looking, for example, Adriatic Sea here, like a sack, like a closed area. If somebody would like to save position of Venice, the first line of defense located to the entrance to the Adriatic Sea. Somebody know which island are on the entrance? Sorry, entrance of Adriatic Sea. Somebody know?
Sicily.
Corfu. It's very important. Recently, it's quite popular touristic target. But on that time it was a military basis which controlled entrance to the Adriatic Sea. And second line, if somebody visited in the Dalmatian coastal area, recently named a Croatian coastal area, there are a lot of small islands. Ideal place locate a military bases, saving entrance to the deeper part of Adriatic Sea. And the last one, a Chioggia. A Chioggia, this is the entrance to the canal of Venice. Therefore, if somebody would like to save a position of Venice, may or might construct 3 line of defense. Very good geographical position. And very important peculiarity of Venice on the time of Middle Ages, economic adaptiveness. What mean? Look at, for example, modern time. It's easier to understand. Majority of global franchise, global enterprises, representative of the second line of innovation. For example, look at IT sector. Only one enterprise are who innovator, first line innovator. Any other, it's a Microsoft, IBM, or Samsung, or everything, only second and the third line. Why? Because the pioneers necessary to pay the price of all failed innovation. Only one, somebody know, which is the only one pioneer innovator on the IT sector?
Nokia.
No? Nokia was the first line innovator, but recently it's faded, it's a marginal enterprises. Apple, of course, Apple, no any other. And on the Middle Ages, Venice was a typical Microsoft. It's a second line innovator. But each successful innovation adapted quite quickly. And control of spice trade. Why? Because on the time, the highest rate of benefit produced a spice trade. 30, 40, 60, or some period, 100% per year. Unbelievable. Recently, only, for example, smuggling or drug trade, drug consummation able to produce so high rate of benefit produced. And the last one, this is the time of crusade. Crusade, which is the goal of crusade? It's reconquering the Holy Land, the Near East, outskirts of Jerusalem. It's not so easy. Why? Because population of Christian state formed by crusade on the Near East calculate and recon approximately 200,000 Christians. And other side, on the Near East lived 15 million Muslims. It's unbalanced situation. And in consequence of this unbalanced situation, a Christian state in Near East in the Holy Land not able to survive without European support. How can travel, how can transport a European support from Europe to Jerusalem or to the Holy Kingdom? One way through Central Europe, Balkanic Peninsula, Anatolia, and finally to Near East. Very long, very long, necessary to riding whole of a lot of 1,000 kilometers. It's very exhaustive. Other way, sailing from Venice directly to Akkon. Akkon, this is the port of Holy Kingdom. It's very easy, but necessary to pay the ticket. It's very high profit rate served for the trader of Venice. First, it's logistical background, logistical service to the Holy Kingdom. It's produced high benefit for centuries to the Venetian trader, first, and secondly, open a commercial gateway or headquarter toward eastern trade for the Venetian trader. Okay, if we are looking a background, a commercial background of Venice, basically this is the south. This slide I showed to lecture before. Amalfi was the first one, the first commercializer and the trader of spice in Italy. And the second line appeared a rivalry between Pisa, Genoa, and Venice. Typical distributor trade, focused to the oriental spices, pepper, nutmeg, ginger, cinnamon, crocus. I hope you remember the price of pepper was equal with gold. 1 kilogram pepper was 1 kilogram gold. I remember I spoke why, because it's not rational reason I spoke about yet, which is the reason very high price of pepper. I spoke? Not? No? Okay, my question. Why paid for 1 kilogram pepper, 1 kilogram gold? Why so high price? Because price of nutmeg, ginger, cinnamon much lower. This is my guess. Some idea? No?
Illusion. It's just an illusion.
Illusion.
Yeah.
Illusion. Yeah, it's true. If somebody, for example, watched the movie of Big Short about the crisis of 2009, or for example, The Wolf of Wall Street, which is the most important science discipline of stock of exchange, psychology. No rational reason why so high, or sometimes the physical processes influence the rate of the price of stock of exchange paper, but generally the psychology much higher, much higher. If the market accepted the high price, it may stay the position for long term. The high price of paper started on the age of Roman Empire and stayed until the period of great geographical discoveries. But very impressive when changed the position of Oriental spices. Oriental spices, very expensive, luxury, typical luxury products. But when on the time of geographical discoveries, introduced a new luxury products like coffee, like tea, like chocolate, like which was the tobacco, Oriental spices down, and the new colonial products up. Therefore, majority of very high price based to the psychological processes. Okay, the first rival, Pisa, disappeared from the place. Why? Look at a map about war of Florence and Pisa. Started at the beginning of 15th century, and the second map you can see disappeared Pisa. Why? Because Florence conquered whole of the city-state and therefore left only two rivals, Genoa and Venice. Look at the history of war, a century-long war between Venice and Genoa. Started the war, the long war, Genoa victory in Curzola. Very special. My question. Somebody visited in Croatian coastal area? Nobody. I suggest to you, it's very good place for summer vacancy. And very important peculiarity of the cities from Trogir. Older name is Trau, Split, older name is Spalato, Dubrovnik, former name is Ragusa. This area connected to the Italian culture. And the citizen who lived in the recent Croatian cities, Ragusa, Trau, Spalato, Italian people, spoke Italian language and connected to the culture and trade and civilization of Italian peninsula. Curzola, recently named Korčula, it's a Croatian name, it's quite close. Genoa won against the fleet of Venice. Almost 1 century later, Genoa seized Chioggia. You remember, this is the third line of defense of Venetian Republic. In this critical situation, Venetian elite applied a technique of antiquity solving the crisis. You know, the dictatorship. The dictatorship applied in the Roman Empire. In critical situation, one general might be for half-year dictator. Did everything which would like to useful. And in critical situation, Vettor Pisani Doge elected to dictator, and each of very rich family of Venice had to offer half of the fortune, and recruited a new army from Balkanic folks of Balkanic Peninsula. Somebody know which Balkanic folks, Balkanic nation was the most popular in the Venetian army? Albanian, very important, Albanian. Why Albanian? Because it's a marginal agrarian area. Look at the marginal agrarian area in Europe. For example, Alpine area, Switzerland. On the same period as Swiss halberdier was very popular. Why? Because this marginal area, very low living standards. Therefore, the local people traveled to guest work to other places. And who are the most paid guest worker? A soldier, of course, a soldier. Who are, you can tell, other marginal agrarian area in Europe? For example, Kors, island of Kors. Who are the most famous soldier? Napoleon. Therefore, a marginal area produce soldier, guest worker in general sense, but the most popular and the best paid are a soldier. Albanian, the best soldier on the Balkanic Peninsula. Look at, for example, there is a Turkish student in the audience. Turkish? No Turkish student. In Ottoman Empire, the highest position which might receive by no Muslim, no Turkish people, a great Vizier, the leader of army. And the highest number of foreigner received this title were Albanians. Not only the soldier were popular, but the military leader too. Okay, under direction of Ettore Pisani, it's won the final battle against Genoa and closed the long war with the peace treaty in Turin. It was an equal situation. But this is the date of great domination, global domination in Europe of Venice. Look at the consequences. The first step after the peace treaty occupied and fortified Corfu. This is the first line of defense. Never happened again that enemies received and arrived to the entrance of channels, of canals, and occupied the closer area around Venice, occupied and conquered Padua, Verona, Brescia, Bergamo, inner land organized around Venice. And this is the network of trade of Oriental spices. You can follow the trajectory of Oriental spices. It's sailed from Indian Ocean by Muslim trader, and the most important market of Oriental space was Alexandria and some ports of Near East. This area named Levant. Levant means eastern basin of Mediterranean Sea. Traveled to Venice and partly Genoa and distributed whole of the continent. Other reason of raising up of Venice became weak, a northern pole. You remember, this is the high medieval age period. Weakened the northern age. The first, a demographic decline. You remember, a low country basically was industrial core area. And when died 1/3 of European population, the consequence, rate of consumer decreased. No chance for produce profit for industrial activity. And other one appeared a special industry in Italy, a luxury textile industry. Somebody know which is the central city of luxury textile industry? A silk industry in Italy? Milan. Look at, for example, a haute couture as on French name or fashion central part is Paris and Milan. And the career of Milan started in the 15th century. Therefore, Milan, not a new innovation, it's a long tradition art. Okay, how organized economy of Venice? Very interesting that on the budget of Middle Ages or medieval countries, no any documentary sources. Why? Because majority of information was on the brain. During my childhood, I received experiences a little bit about the traditional society. Basically, the communication and organization and solving the problem based on oral communication, not written, but a verbal communication. Therefore, the function of the memory much larger, much larger. Good example, for example, understanding this situation and this mentality and this solving strategy. Somebody know a religion of Celtic, a Celtic religion. A priest of Celtic religion named Druids, a Druids. And the Druid Celtic religion, no written version. No written version. Each Druids memorized each of information. And when killed the last Druids, each of information expired. On the traditional time, basically saved on the memories. On the memories. We are the hard disk. Inside of the brain was the hard disk. Therefore, very exceptional when wrote down information about the budget. Only generally in special situation. This information about, at the beginning of 15th century, about the budget of Venice, prepared because a Doge, Tommaso Mocenigo, accused with criminal activities. Criminal activities. And on the juridical process necessary to collecting and writing down each of information which verified or denied these criminal activities, and collected each of information about, but this is the first information. In the history of Hungary, for example, the first reliable information about the budget of Hungarian kingdom appeared 70 years later. I remember 1498, the same situation. Zsigmond Ernst, who was a chamber leader of the royal chamber, accused with criminal activities and collected each of information. This is the first reliable documentary sources about population of Hungarian kingdom and the budget income of Hungarian kingdom. Any other from the earlier part of Middle Ages, estimation. No more than estimation. Okay, look at the story. On the time, at the beginning of 15th century, a budget of Venice collected national income, 5 to 10% of national income. Somebody know which is the national income? Nobody? National income are a lot of different definitions. The simplest definition, a new value which produces a country's economy per 1 year. A new value, not reconstruction, new value only. Okay, how many person able to collect a Venetian government? 5 to 10%. Somebody know recently, for example, a Hungarian state, how many percent able collecting national income?
27. 27?
7?
27.
27. No more. 40, 47, 48. Half, almost half of the national income. It's great temptation for politicians. It's a picking a little bit from our national income. Okay, but there are differences which you mentioned. It's true in the case of United States. In United States, 25, 27, the general. But it's other strategy because the personal insurance and the expense of education necessarily financed by citizen. In Hungary, officially, majority of expense financed by state. And for example, I visited some years ago in Norway. In Norway, the rate of tax 72%. 72%. Very high. But everything is free. Everything is free. For example, if somebody performed the baccalaureate, closing the secondary school, receive in euros it's how many euros? It's 5,000 euros because performed and closed the studies in secondary school. Unbelievable, unbelievable. But very high the rate of taxes. But this is the starting position. Rate of taxes change between 5 to 10%. Okay, next one. National income. It's depend the income of budget. It's budget of state. It's no function. It's 750,000 ducats. This is whole of the budget of city-state. The general gross national income we are not sure because it's possible to 5 to 10. Therefore, estimate between 7.5 million and 50 million ducats, the gross national income. Look at the next step. Estimated population of Venice in the late Middle Ages, 150,000 citizen dwellers. And the per capita income might change 50 to 100 ducats. Population of commercial empire mean occupied Corfu, occupied Bergamo, Padua, Brescia. It's a colonial empire, commercial empire. It's 500,000 the population, and national income, whole of the commercial empire, 1.6 million ducats. It's very boring data, very boring information. And monetary flow, flowing up, whole of the Venetian economy, 40 million. It's very, very boring information. Why interesting following this data, understanding the position of Venetian state and Venetian economy? It's understandable in consequence of comparison with other contemporary states. Look at, for example, France. Population of France, 17 million. And the size of more than 500,000 square kilometers. Unbelievable large. And 1 million, a little bit more than Venetian empire, but the tasks of state, much higher, much larger. Spain, forming Spain, a little bit lower, comparable with Venice, but large area, with 8 million dwellers. England, 900,000 ducats, but large area with 4 or 5 million population. And Hungary, on the time of Matthias, this was a special Hungarian king, time by time collected a special taxes and promitted that no again, and repeated more times. On the time, 500,000, but in normal situation, no more than 300,000 ducats. Therefore, if we are looking at position of Venice, this is the highest concentration of financial power, highest concentration. It's very easy, very difficult to understand, which is the meaning of highest concentration. For example, I would like to make a hole in this wall. I push in the wall, no chance for that, but forming and selecting a small place and with huge power able to making the whole of the wall. A little bit same situation in the case of Venice. So high financial power concentration, and with consequence of high financial power concentration, able to manipulate whole of European economy. Look at how. The first step, minting, making gold ducats. Before the age of Venice, no minting of gold ducats. Why so important minting gold ducats? Because increase the dimension of commercial affairs. Gold ducats necessary because the power, not only the power, the dimension of commercial affairs up to higher position. The first one, Genoa, who minted gold ducats, the second one Florence, and Venice, like not pioneer, innovator, only the third one. How use the great richness? The first one, the city construction and reconstruction. Venice, if somebody visit or will visit to Venice, very important to realize is the most recently, the most fragile buildings and most fragile settlement whole of the world. Why? Because the soil of island is very unstable. Therefore, it's pushed a huge quantity of timber material, wooden material, fortifying the basis and the foundation of the buildings. Moreover, time by time necessary to reconstruct the soil, stability of the soil, and reconstruct the building. This is an artificial work, a real artificial work. High expense of reconstruction. The second one, organize a diplomatic and commercial network. It's great innovation. Basically, a Venetian politician followed the model of Byzantine Empire. And it's very useful. Why? Because embassy of Istanbul, when founded Ottoman Empire, tried to organize a peaceful condition with Ottoman Empire. Why? Because this is the main way of trade on the Levant, on the eastern basin of Mediterranean Sea, which dominated by Turkish Empire. And a local ambassador tried to somehow, with help of corruption, solve the problem. If no, it's cheaper a corruption than organized a war, selected the corruption. If much better solution was organizing a war, it's selected the war. But the best information was on the hand of ambassador who lived in Istanbul, deciding which is the most optimal solution for the critical situation. Trading post beside the diplomatic area, and very important, organize a mercenary troops basically to Albanians, and for soldier necessary pay by cash. How organized around Venice the first world economic system? Inner part, the central part, located to northern Italy, like Venice, Milan, Lombardy, Genoa, and Florence. And the second one, basically the German Europe, like Augsburg, Vienna, Nuremberg, Basel, Strasbourg, and two English ports connected to the semi-periphery, like London and Southampton. If we would like to imagine the axis of the trade, this is one axis of the trade to the southeast to northwest and northeast to southwest. Okay, which were the most important institution of success of Venetian trader? As I mentioned, all of innovation adapted. For example, one of the most important innovation was a compulsory segregated residence. It's named a fondux. It's not, I'm not sure that good spelling, it's an Arabian term. It's applied first time in the city of caravans, oasis city. For example, in Arabian Peninsula, Medina, Mecca, Taif, Jaif, and other one. Why good solution on the caravan cities are mandatory segregation? Because arrive one caravan to the caravan city, nobody knows who are on the caravan. It's possible that criminals arrive to the caravan cities. Therefore, very important, separate from the local people. Other point of view, it's possible that the caravan cities lived criminals who are dangerous for the member of caravans. Therefore, necessary separate one to other. How applied in Venice? If we are looking the trade, the upper part of the trade controlled from Alexandria to Venice, a spice trade, Oriental spice trade, by Venetian trader. But the distribution on the continental area organized by German and Jewish trader. The rivalry between German and Jewish trader started in the Middle Ages. Therefore, very important to learn history. Because a lot of conflict rooted so deeply to the history that we are not able to understand from the information of modern history, 20th century history. It's a very deep rivalry and separated each of sub-trader to a segregated district of Venice. The first one, Fondaco dei Tedeschi. This was for German. It's circumscribed by wall and checked by guard of Venetian government. And other district, a ghetto, it was like, for example, one district of Szeged. It's Alsóváros, for example. No other meaning. It's named Agattere. It was a former industrial district. It reconstructed and offered for the Jewish trader. But recently, a ghetto, which is only a district name in Venice, became a universal concept, a universal category of district where segregated a Jewish population. But the first time, it's no other meaning, no universal, a local meaning are only. Okay, a fundus is good innovation. A commercial innovation. A first gold ducats. Genoa, later Florence. No Venice, Venice only the third one. Look at the other, check of bill of exchange, artificial money. Introduced by Florentine trader, no Venetian. Holding companies, a small enterprises organized a large enterprises and increase the power of economic enterprises, introduced by Florence and Florentine trader, no Venetian. Double entry bookkeeping. It's very simple. Recently, in the housewife training school applied, expense and income. Separation of expense and income. It's very simple. But the dimension of innovation help a little bit understand a Phoenician who introduced the money, and the Greek who organized the first large colonial network, and the Roman Empire who organized the first great empire of Europe, wasn't able to introduce. The first one, a Florentine trader who introduced income and expense separation. It's great innovation. It's great innovation. And the next crucial, maritime insurance. Who has a car? There is an insurance, which is the logic of insurance system. Everybody paid a small amount, but in the situation of accident, paying the budget, paying the expense of reparation. It's unbelievable, great innovation. Because, for example, look at an entrepreneur. For example, for you, you are in the first line. You have only one commercial vessel, one ship. And this ship sunk on the Adriatic Sea, expire whole of the budget. But if you paid maritime insurance, receive back, and you can restart the enterprises. Okay, it's very simple. Who introduced Florence? A continental city, unbelievable, unbelievable. Bye. And the first regular sailing with Flanders via Gibraltar, organized by Genoa. And finally, search for direct routes to India westward. At the end of 13th century, lived two brothers in Genoa named Vivaldi. Not a musician, it's a Vivaldi. It's a very simple Italian name, Vivaldi. And describe that much better sailing on the Atlantic Ocean westward to the direction of China. First documented information that a sailor thought about the possibility not on the coastal area of Africa might sailing to China but westward. And who performed for 2 centuries this trip? Named Cristoforo Colombo. Who was born? Columbus? Genoa. This was a Genoese idea. Generation by generation saved this possible trajectory of travel. And if we are looking these series of most important innovation of late mid-ages, no Venetian innovation. But each of that adapted to Venice and applied with very high efficiency. Very interesting the place and location of stock of exchange, the Bourse. It's an open air Bourse on the square of San Giacometto, Church of San Giacometto. Okay, a broker and a businessman walk on the street. This is a meeting place. Basically, the stock of exchange, it's a meeting place. This was an earlier version. And how try to solve the problem of the crisis? Because the crisis of 14th century with the Black Death, with great humanitarian loss, it was a crisis for the Venice similarly. How try to solve this problem? Basically apply the same strategy like on the 20th century. Probably you know the history of the first great economic crisis between 1929 and 33. It was the deepest crisis of forming universal capitalism and global world system. And try to solve the problem with innovation of investment of the state. Probably you know the name, at least the student of Faculty of Economics, name of Keynes. Keynes, the first public work who financed by state helped to solve the problem of the crisis. A little bit same situation happened in Venice, which were the most important devices of the trading society, a galleys, the commercial ships, and a state constructed in state factories large galleys, large commercial vessels. And the name of, unfortunately, the pointer is not able, okay. Here, the most important factory of the state named to Arsenal. On the Middle Ages, this was the largest factory, whole of Europe. More than 1,000 workers. It's partly arms constructed and partly it's shipbuilding factories walls. And which is the innovation? A state financed the shipbuilding, the construction of the vessels, and the trader, it's rented might buying whole of the vessels, moderate rate of the price, or might rent it. One place, 100 place, some percent of the place of the vessels. Therefore, expenses of the trader decreased with state and governmental support of Venetian traders. Okay, and which were the unfortunately some were animation not functional, but which were the reason of decline of Venice? The first reason of decline of Venice are regeneration of European territorial state. After the 14th century, the great humanitarian catastrophe, great population loss, regenerated. This is the first reason. became dangerous for Venetian commercial empire. France, first line, and secondly, Spain. The second one, invasion of Ottoman Empire. Invasion of Ottoman Empire, which occupied the eastern basin of the Mediterranean Sea. And the last one, and the most critical, geographical discoveries. Basically, 6 nations participated in the geographical discoveries. The first 2 are Portugal, the second one Spanish, the third one are Dutch, English, French, and very important to mention, the actor of geographical discoveries was the Russian. But not the ocean-oriented colonial construction, but organizing and conquering of Siberia. But the spatial dimension was the same and comparable with other discoveries, geographical discoveries. And if we are looking at the geographical discoveries which reconstructed whole of the economic system, because before the geographical discoveries, the weight of trade located to the Mediterranean basin, Mediterranean trade. And in consequence of geographical discoveries, the weight and the gravity position moved to the direction of Atlantic Ocean. Which are the most important causes? The first reason of geographical discoveries are continuation of reconquest. Which is the reconquest? Reconquest of Iberian Peninsula, recent Spain and Portugal, from Muslim Empire. Probably you know the story when in the 17th century Muslim troops and Muslim army occupied Iberian Peninsula and founded Cordovan Caliphates. Cordovan Caliphates. It's very high level of civilization. According to contemporary documentary sources, each of male citizen of Caliphates was able to read. Unbelievable. 10th century. This was the heyday of Muslim civilization. Compare with the continental area. For example, on the court of Charlemagne, the emperor of new Holy Roman Empire, nobody was able to write a correct Latin sentence. If we compare the civilization level, it's a Cordovan Caliphate and European continental civilization. It's very under the level of Muslim civilization. Started the reconquest step by step, organized a lot of small local principality like Castile, like Catalonia, like Portugal, and step by step reconquest Iberian Peninsula. But which is the price of reconquest, long reconquest? Formed a large nobility. Majority of noblemen, no estate, but lived from the fruits of war. Fruits of war, plundering, for example, gathering hostages and so and so. It is a fruit it's a fruit of war. And if somebody wasn't able to save level of income, naturally became peasant. 15% of Spanish society or Portugal society were noblemen. In France, only one person. It overgrew the proportion and the weight of nobility. Therefore, the nobleman, after closing the reconquest, after closing of reconquest of Iberian Peninsula, tried to find new target. The first step to Northern Africa failed, and the other turned to the direction of New World, because the Indian population, Aztec, Mochica, Inca population, no so dangerous. Why? Because Amerindian civilization lived in the Copper Age. Copper Age wasn't able making iron weapons. Much weaker rivals. Continuation of reconquest. Behind the great geographical discoveries and conquering Inca and Aztec Empire were the great large number Iberian nobility and the Christian church missionary ambition. Not by chance, in the second travel of Columbus, not only Columbus and the sailor and soldier sailed to the New World, but 8 Benedictine monks, because a Christian church ambitious for the proliferate the circle of Christendom. And as I mentioned, on the case of reason of decline of Venice and the Venetian commercial empire, appeared on the eastern part of Mediterranean Sea a Turkish empire which occupied and partly closed the way to the trade Indian Ocean, and a precious metal hunger. A precious metal hunger. It's a metaphor. It's not contemporaries never ate a precious metal. A precious metal hunger mean one of the most important trade, as I mentioned, are Oriental spice and silk and generally Oriental products. And if compared as not only civilization but the commercial and industrial level of China, India, the Indian Ocean and Europe much lower level. Therefore, no industrial products which interesting for Chinese, for Indian and for Asian people generally. Therefore, a European had to pay by precious metal. Therefore, generation by generation, trade balance between Asian trade and Europe produced a deficit. Huge quantity of precious metal traveled to Asia, and recently archaeological reconstruction verified a lot of places in China, in India, and the island of Indian Ocean found medieval or early modern European ducats and coins. Okay, which is the reason of European success? Because I mentioned more times that compare with Asian trade and the European civilization, Europe is a loser in this comparison. Which is the reason of the success of European in the formation of international trade? Basically a technical innovation. A new ships, it's a caravel, and the sailing system. It's very important that a sailing system, it's unbelievably complicated. Probably you know a classical medieval or early modern commercial vessel, commercial ships. So complicated sailing system that the European caravels able to sailing in front of the wind. Not so easy to understand, but so complicated the surface of sailing system that it's innovated a zigzag maneuver that if we are following the trajectory, able sail in front of the direction of wind. Look at, for example, a battle situation, a maritime battle situation, which great advantages if some fleet able sailing in front of the wind. It's very complicated maneuver, but possible. It's based to the complicated sailing system. And the firearms, cannons and muskets. I hope I told to you a story with the gunpowder. Very innovative gunpowder in China. But the gunpowder is very dangerous material. It's blowing up. The first generation of the muskets was dangerous for the user similarly. Blow up on the hand, it's killed. But generation by generation improved the efficiency of the muskets. Why? Because in Europe, very low density of population. Not enough people for solving the problem. Not possible solving the problem only based to the population. Therefore, a European mentality, inner part, openness for innovation. Openness for innovation. Generation by generation, improve, and finally became very efficient. And when European appeared to the colonized area, the sailing system and the firearms, it's served the basic condition of the success. And finally, the magnetic compass. Where innovated the magnetic compass? China, similarly. China. But look at the history of China. Look at the Chinese student on the last slide. You are Chinese. Okay. You know the name of Cheng Ho or Zheng Ho? Zheng Ho, he was an admiral of Chinese fleet on the 15th century under the Ming dynasty. Sailed to Africa and sailed to the America before Columbus. But on the time of 14th century, a Manchu Empire on the time was out of the Great Wall. A Manchu Empire, it's attacked China, and the Ming Emperor decided whole of the power of China turned against the Manchu Empire. And whole of the fleet, because it's a useless for the central power, for the conception of the central power, burned down whole of the fleet, who some decade before sailed to Africa and sailed to America too. Burned down, and China, on the time of colonization, isolated. It was a critical for the modern Chinese history. In Europe, its individual state follow his or her individual interest. Therefore, Portugal sailed to the direction of Africa, Spanish and Spaniard sailed to direction of westward to America. No central power who simplified the diversity of decision. And the compass, which invented in China, used the most important device of European success. Okay, and scientific innovation. This is the age of Renaissance, rebirth of culture of antiquity. Introduced the mapping system, which used by Roman Empire. Introduced a navigation, introduced art of war. Which is the art of war? A strategy. Translated, for example, memories of Julius Caesar and the general of Roman Empire. And for example, organized a battle from book. And this was a great innovation. Why? In the Middle Ages, the strategy, one army, other army, run in front of to each other. No strategy, or very, very moderate. But retranslated a great strategy book, for example, a book of Sun Tzu. This is the Sun Tzu, it's a very famous Chinese general, Art of War. Therefore, technical innovation and intellectual innovation was the most important reason of success of Europeans. Movable cannons and portable muskets. Why so important innovation? Look at, for example, a medieval army. Medieval army based to knights. Knights, not one person, one unit of fights. And which is the term of education of knights? 10 years. 10 years. Start before the 10th anniversary and closing around 18, 19, 20. And it's possible the knight die on the first battle. And in consequence of firearms, the training period, 1 month or 2 months. Therefore, very low the access, the threshold of access. Evaluation of infantry, Spanish musketeers, Germans, Landcats, Swiss halberdier, and the Turkish Janissary. The great infantry, which dominated the battlefields for the following 3 centuries, it's cannons and infantry. And only one, not European, a Turkish Janissary applied this innovation. And the famous declaration, the domination of infantry, was the Battle of Pavia between the French army and the Spanish army. And according to description, for example, one musketeers shot down 2 knights with 1 shot. One is through, and other it's the bullet only killed 1. Okay. So, I have some minutes, but not start a new one. Thanks a lot for your attention, and we will follow in the next week. Okay. Unfortunately, before this lecture, I switch on the camera.